why did you think that none of the other so-called universities were looking for any hip-hop instructors? Was it anything racial? Was it the market acceptance in terms of hip-hop culture? Because obviously the ballet of the world, the jazz of the world, they've been in the university for a long time.
I mean, at the time, hip-hop just wasn't recognized as a viable art form. I think Stanford had a DJ course that involved Grandmaster Flash, so they already had that.
That was a long time ago, too.
That was the 90s. Studios thought hip-hop was the new name for jazz. Now in the 90s, you got a void of dancers, so now studio-trained kids are filling them spots with studio jazz. It's not really the codified jazz. And now you have this mixture of poems, which is cheerleading, comes into play. So now when you start looking at choreography, you see the diamond and the square, the circle and the formant. That's cheerleading. You get that from cheerleading. And then you see other movement like, that's not hip-hop. That's what you learn in the modern jazz ballet class. It was new for studios. It was definitely new for universities. Like, Sal, know your stuff. But no emphasis on their stuff. He said, because whenever someone tries to dismiss what you do, you use their information to prove your point because they believe that.
Okay, so let's go dig a little deeper on this topic, because you did mention that you're the second person, and then you went to all those universities teaching on the movement classes, and then eventually now full-time at USC. Why did you think that none of the other so-called universities were looking for any hip-hop instructors? Was it anything racial? Was it the market acceptance in terms of hip-hop culture? Because obviously the ballet of the world, the jazz of the world, they've been in the university for a long time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how big the program it is or was, but at least they had something.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And hip-hop has been around for a long time too. Not like that long comparing to ballet.
Not long at all. Yeah.
Right. But I will say for the course of, what is it? We just had the 50 years anniversary.
50, 60 years.
Right. But I would imagine...
the structure has been around even longer.
Right. So I would imagine the university class... And there's a huge, like massive influence on the music part of it. But that's true because, you know, the music video, the TikTok, the Instagram... I mean, sure, that's more recent, but even before that, there was movies about hip-hop dance, you know, all those, you know, people that been out there and did a lot of things for the community. I would say the influence wasn't small, but why that the only, like, so far, you said, like, only very, very few universities had this position.
I mean, at the time, hip-hop just wasn't recognized as a viable art form.
Okay.
If recognized as an art form at all, but, you know, it was very new. Rap music and DJing were in universities.
Okay.
Yeah. They were already, I mean, Trisha Rowe's book, Black Noise, came out in 96.
Huh.
So they were already having critical discussions on the meanings behind rap lyrics and the orchestration and all that. So the music component was already in there. And then I think Stanford had a DJ course that involved Grandmaster Flash. So they already had that.
And that was a long time ago, too.
That was in the 90s.
In the 90s already?
90s
oh, wow.
Well.
Okay.
So, but the dance, they wasn't thinking about it, you know. And in terms of, like, most dance programs, they don't recognize social dancing as a significant contribution to the arts. You know, which is kind of obscure because ballet starts off as a social dance. It's a social dance before it became an art form on the stage, on the proscenium. And any dance starts out in the community before it becomes this global sensation on the stage.
Sure.
And just hip-hop wasn't just recognized as that. And there was a lot of changing of the minds when it came to the importance of hip-hop. And so I was definitely there for some of that work. People like Rennie Harris was there doing the work that he was doing so they could see actually in the theater that, oh, this is not what we thought it was. And then a lot of studios thought hip-hop was the new name for jazz. Like, I've been in studios where studio owners were telling their students to teach a hip-hop class, and the students were like, oh, yeah, I don't teach hip-hop. I'm a ballet dancer. And the owners would literally say to them, well, just watch a music video and do what they do. So that's...
See, they couldn't even tell the difference.
No. And they literally thought it was just a new name for jazz.
For jazz, okay.
Because they're looking at the choreography, and what you would see oftentimes in the music videos was not real jazz dancing. It was what they call, or what jazz has been codified as. But a lot of those dancers were not hip hop dancers. This is in the era in the 90s where, I mean, this is in 2000s, but in the 90s, a lot of the people that were hip hop dancers from the community stopped dancing. One of the only groups that didn't was Elite Force.
Right.
Like, they were still doing work.
Right.
Everybody else was done. Like, IOU dancers weren't doing anything in the industry. Soul Brothers wasn't doing anything in the industry. All of these, they're gone. Nobody's doing it. But they're still doing it. And what that created was this void where in the 80s, you had to be from the community. You had to be a well-known dancer, or you were rocking spaces, circles, and clubs and stuff. That's how you got jobs. There were no auditions. You got jobs because the rappers knew you and put you on. But now in the 90s, you got a void of dancers. So now studio trained kids are filling them spots with studio jazz. It's not really, it's a codified jazz. And now you have this mixture of palms, which is cheerleading, comes into play. So now when you start looking at the choreography, you see the diamond and the square and the circle and the formant. That's cheerleading. You get that from cheerleading. And then you see all the movement like, that's not hip hop. That's what you learn in the modern jazz ballet class. And that becomes a thing. So now when people see it, they just think, oh, this is just do jazz. No, they're not doing hip hop. Hip hop looks like this. And so it was a relearning that everybody had to come to.
So when they listened to those music video, did they already recognize that was hip hop music? They just didn't think that the dance was hip hop? Or they just didn't know?
They just didn't recognize it as a formidable dance to put it into a studio.
Okay.
So it was new for studios. It was definitely new for the university.
When would you say that was?
That was the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay. So people even though the music has been around for a while, but the dance wasn't recognized or kind of like
important enough to teach in those studios.
Right.
Or definitely not in the university.
Okay.
So as I said, Pop Master Fade was late 90s, was the first one.
So it took a long time for the studios and the university to be like, oh, this is actually something completely different.
And even when I got in there, Rennie, one of the fires that fueled, my need to dig deeper into the history and everything was Rennie, because Rennie had said to me, he was like, Sel, everybody call me Sel. He's like, Sel, know your stuff, but no emphasis on their stuff. He said, because whenever someone tries to dismiss what you do, you use their information to prove your point because they believe that. So now I'm auditing modern dance classes. I'm taking some contact improv. I'm taking some modern. I'm auditing ballet classes. I'm really figuring out, well, what is it y'all are doing? What is the language you're using? What is the structure of this? Sure. And then I'm reading books on ballet and modern and this, and I'm just immersing myself in all this information. So now that I want to get in conversations, I can now use a ballet example that you connect with to prove the point of why this is significant.
Okay.
And so now that I know your language, let me hip you to this because you don't know this. And because I know your language, you're now listening to me.
So you're creating this connection that didn't exist before so that you can kind of like decipher the whole, knowledge that in their head and be like, hey, it's not that hard to understand my part of the world if I can use your language.
Right. And so really when he said that to me, I was like, done. Because at that time they was just hip hop they would dismiss it. It was like that's nothing. That's not real dance. Okay. Like, this is real dance.
So you didn't think it was like anything racial politics or?
I didn't. It was just a lack of understanding, a lack of appreciation. Maybe there was some racial undertones to it. I don't know. Based on the individual, you
didn't care anyway, but you wanted to dig deeper on how do I create a connection and have them accept this art form as important as a university course, and develop the whole into a program. Well, you say you're one of the very first, well, not one of, probably the first person to made it like a program.
Nah, I didn't know. I didn't make it like the program was there. They just implemented what I brought to the table inside the program.
But it's a lot more broad. It's not just like one class.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
like a whole.
I added to the programming that they already had by bringing in courses that focused on hip hop that was sharing information that they didn't have or they didn't know.
Okay.
But I didn't create the program.
Sure.
You know,
It's already there, but you're adding a lot of new things. Okay. Ansel also has a breadth of knowledge on instruments, on drums, like not just that, but also like culture stuff, like the African culture, the as you can probably see in our background. Now like there's a whole collection of stuff that's just so beautiful and. Yes, and then also the history, like I'm gonna show you like his shelf of like 1,000 books at least or something.
Not that many.
Yeah, but still, like they're all useful information for people to do readings and gain knowledge on. But yeah, I hope that we can do a second round to talk about all of that stuff. But just for today, I think we learned a lot about you. Right, how you grew up, and then definitely a lot of information about the development, the childhood part of what influence a dancer in certain culture, we will come back for a lot more information. See you soon. Peace.